Hi again, folks. Principle number 7, interruption-free flow. What does that mean? You think about the flow of a work process and think about the stuff. Pretend you're the stuff that's flowing through the manufacturing plant. And something happens to you. There's a state change where wires are attached, wires are cut, plastic is molded, different things happen at each stage in the process. And then what? Does it sit? Does it stand? Does it go into a warehouse? Does it sit on a pallet? All those are interruptions. That is also waste, right? Work in process inventory is waste. So try to figure out how to eliminate any interruptions in your process. Cross-functional teams that look at the process flow, across the organization should be looking at how to create interruption-free flow. Think about the relationship with your suppliers and think about how to eliminate interruptions between your suppliers and yourself. When I was at Honda, I visited the Stanley plant that makes the headlight, taillight assemblies that go on a Honda Accord and a Honda Civic. And the Honda engineers are in that plant every day. The idea that that's a different corporation and there's some wall, they're a separate box, that's not in their mind. That's just a mental concept that they don't have. They think about the flow. And as far as they're concerned, the definition of corporate boundaries is completely irrelevant to the flow of the work. And at Stanley, there's no warehouse of outgoing material. There's a semi-trailer, which is the warehouse. And it's a 2-hour warehouse. It moves every 2 hours. You know why? Because in the assembly plant in Marysville, there's a 2-hour pile of headlight and taillight assemblies to be put on. So there's an interruption. It's a 2-hour interruption, but there's no warehouse. There's only that tractor trailer that's gonna move every 2 hours. They work every day on reducing the amount of interruption in the process to create that flow. Often it is the human boundaries and the boundaries we create in our mind between this department and that department. And every time something has to go up, a problem or decision has to go up to levels of management, that's an interruption. That slows down the process. The degree to which we trust first-level employees to communicate across boundaries, even across company boundaries, we reduce the interruptions and we reduce waste. I hope that makes sense. Celebrate. 4-to-1. What does this mean? There was a research project done by Dr. Ogden Lindsley, who was an educational psychologist, and he studied behavior in classrooms. And he studied the ratio of positive to negative comments made by teachers to students and the effect on the students' performance. And I'm not sure exactly how this research was conducted, and I doubt you want to go into it. But what he found was that the ratio of positive to negative comments by teachers that produced the highest rate of learning was 3.57 to 1. Now, you can really impress your friends with this bit of trivia. We rounded it off to 4-to-1 and said, if your supervisors are making 4 positive comments to 1 negative comment, that's great. They're going to maximize the motivation of employees. Once we measured that in the workplace, and we had supervisors carry in their pocket, called them 4-to-1 cards, where every time they interacted with an employee, they just made a check. Was it a positive or a negative interaction? Did they compliment the employee? Did they praise them? Or did they correct them? Did they tell them they were doing something wrong? Well, they often found it was 1-to-4. It was 1 positive to 4 negatives. Well, you don't want to work in an environment where you're 4 times more likely to get criticized than praised. None of us want to work in that environment. And this works in the home. You can just, none of my business, but you can just ask yourself, with your children or your spouse, is your interaction with them more negative or more positive? Are you more likely to be correcting them and criticizing them? Or are you more likely to be using positive reinforcement and praising them and catching them doing something good today? That phrase that came from the 1-Minute Manager that Ken Blanchard published came out of behavioral systems. We used to have a poster with a guy with a butterfly net chasing somebody. It said, catch someone doing something good today. We posted on plant walls. You know why sports is fun? Take a piece of paper tonight and sit down and watch a baseball game or basketball or football game and listen to all the different numbers. And I'm telling you, you may hear 50 different statistics during the course of a game. And with each time you hear a statistic, ask yourself whether it was positive, negative, or neutral. And you will find that they're overwhelmingly positive. They're talking about positive records that are set. And that makes sports fun. Sports are fun because of the increased probability of getting positive reinforcement, having a positive experience and a negative experience. Now, the reality in sports is one team wins and one team loses. It's exactly a 50-50 percent game by definition of the way sports are conducted. But when you listen to the commentators and you listen to the way it's discussed, they talk about the positive records more than the negative records. So create a culture of celebration in your organization and create a system. Design the system. We're going to be designing systems. Design a system of positive reinforcement to celebrate good performance in your organization. Now, leadership. I don't care how self-directed your teams are. Leadership matters a great deal. And the most important thing I want to say about leadership at this point, we've talked about leadership, in the previous 2 sections of the course, and will more later. But here's the key point I want to make. You must model the behavior that you hope to achieve from others. That is your obligation. And this goes back to Alexander the Great leading the charge of his companions, his cavalry, into battle. He didn't say, go and I'll watch, sitting up on the hill, watching them. No. He led the charge. And you as a leader in your organization, it is incumbent upon you to lead the charge, which means demonstrating the behavior, practicing the behavior that you want from. If you are not posting your data for your team, and when people come into your office or going into the hall around the senior manager's office, if they don't see the data, why should they see the data down on the shop floor? If you don't have a scorecard, why should they have a scorecard? If you're not practicing good team problem-solving skills, why should they? In fact, you should more than they, because the decisions you make have higher impact and higher cost. So you should be practicing the best possible problem-solving methods. So practice problem-solving methods. Eliminate waste from your own activities. And trust me, if you really look at management waste, there's a lot of waste. Be able to talk to your organization about how you have eliminated waste from management activities. And that will encourage others to do the same. What is your standard work? What is leader standard work in your organization? It should be leader standard work to do a Gemba walk once a day or once a week or once a something. What are the other elements of standard work for your team? You should have them. You should be able to talk to them. And therefore, when you go out on the shop floor doing your Gemba walk or you're talking to managers at a lower level, you should be able to ask them what their standard work is and say, well, let me tell you what our standard work is. And maybe you should be doing something like that, right? That's much more powerful than saying, well, we expect you to have standard work, but, we're above it. We don't need it. Nonsense. Okay. It is the job of leaders not to create a condition of ease, but to create challenge. What is the challenge that you're presenting to your employees or to the levels below? Make the challenge clear. This is how you achieve strategy execution. You got to challenge people, and you got to present them with the challenge and present them with the means to achieve the challenge, but make the challenge clear. Don't create a condition of ease. That's not your game. Be on the spot. Respect those who are on the spot. Those are some critical elements of leadership in a lean organization. I hope that you are practicing each of them.